What connects Scythians, the Huns, the Turks, and the Mongols? Different languages, different centuries, but one shared logic. A world shaped not by walls or cities, but by movement, herds, and open horizons. This video examines the Great Steppe as historical concept, a zone of influence that shaped both Europe and China. To understand Eurasia, we must first understand the steppe, not as a void between civilizations, but as the space that connected them. Greetings! My name is Dmitry Vasilyev, and I welcome you on my historical analytical channel. In Western historiography, the term Eurasian steppe is generally used in purely geographical sense. It refers to the vast grassland corridor stretching from the Carpathian Basin to Manchuria. This interpretation, while geographically accurate, tends to overlook the complex cultural and political dynamics that shaped the region across centuries. In contrast, Eastern, particularly Central Asian and East Asian historiography often employs the term the Great Steppe, not just to describe a physical landscape, but to denote a civilizational space. This distinction is more than semantic. In the East, the Great Steppe is recognized as a shared cultural and historical zone, a cradle of nomadic empires, cross-continental trade, and adaptive political systems. It reflects a worldview in which mobility, ecology, and kinship structure society in ways fundamentally different from sedentary civilizations. Understanding this difference is vital. It shows us how historical memory and geographic framing can diverge across regions, and why the Great Steppe should be treated not merely as a terrain, but as a historical concept essential to understanding Eurasia. But to understand the concept better, we have to look at its core elements a little bit closer. Part 1. The geography. The geography here is a crucial part, since it actually defines almost everything about culture and history of the region. The steppe is a massive region which extends nearly for 8,000 kilometers across the whole Eurasian continent. It lies from modern-day Hungary on the west to Manchuria region on the east. The climate is quite hard for the living. It is extremely dry. In some places, steppe converts into deserts. There are almost no trees growing in the steppes, and usually land is covered only by small grass. The horizon is usually flat, although somewhere, for example in Mongolia, we can see a little bit of hills. The Great Steppe has many temporary rivers and salt lakes, especially in the central part. So, although the Great Steppe geographically looks solid, it is not absolutely so. Some places are drier. Some places that are located in the north of the steppe have rare trees growing. Moving closer to cultural understanding, we have to mention several locations that are so important for this region that they are often perceived as sacred ones in many steppe cultures. Altai mountains are considered as ancestral home of all Turkic people, but also considered to be sacred for Mongolic culture as well. Baikal Lake, although technically not a part of the steppe region, marks its border in the north. Tian Shan Mountains, in the south of the steppe, are also considered as sacred. The geography around them are quite unique, since the mountains grow straight from the steppe, sort of like a fence from a straight ground. Sacralization of geography is actually not rare in the cultures of the Great Steppe. Lack of water resources made rivers to be perceived as holy ones. Huge mountains, an obstacle for nomadic culture, are also endowed with aggrandizement. In fact, almost everything about nomadic culture is connected to nature and geography. To be able to live in the Great Steppe is to be able to hear and live along with the nature. Part 2. The culture. Many nomadic civilizations have emerged from this region, including the Indo-Iranic Scythians, the Huns, both eastern and western branches, the various Turkic Khanates, the Mongol Empire and its successor states. While these groups differ in ethnic origins and historical epochs, they share cultural traits shaped by the environment, a unifying logic that underpins the concept of the Great Steppe. The most foundational of these traits is the nomadic economy, rooted in extensive pastoralism. The harsh environment made permanent settlement unsustainable in most parts of the steppe. Even before the domestication of the horse, the inhabitants of the region practiced semi-nomadic patterns of movement. With horse-based mobility, entire social systems were organized around seasonal migrations in search of grazing lands. This reliance on mobility fostered a distinctive way of life. Animal herding, particularly of sheep, cattle, and horses, became central to the economy. In most nomadic groups, the number of animals exceeded the human population, and access to vast open pastures was critical. Over time, nomads established a rotational system of summer and winter pastures, often organized by clan or tribal structures. The result was a lifestyle fundamentally different from sedentary agrarian civilizations. Dwellings, such as yurts, reflected this mobility, collapsible, easily transported, and adapted to constant relocation. This mobile existence gave rise to a unique social sensibility. Freedom was not an abstract idea but a daily experience. When one spends most of life in motion, the value of autonomy becomes embedded in culture and worldview. Part 3. The exchange territory. Slowly, we came to the importance of a trade in the Great Steppe concept. Nomadic cultures always had a very simple trade tax, usually around 10% on everything and nothing more. Trade was a main source of income, since such large and open spaces needed to be covered to deliver goods from China to Europe and vice versa. This trade route is called Silkway, named after the most important product that circulated through. From open trade and harsh environment came the understanding of the need for high adaptability. The quicker you adapt, the more chances you have for survival. Part 4. The political structure of society. Now, briefly, I need to mention how the states were operating in the Great Steppe. But first, let me remind us the working conditions. So far, we have an extremely hard-to-live-in environment, nomadic lifestyle with emphasis on international trade as a main source of income, and a trait of adaptability. That simply cannot give us the opportunity to have a centralized state. So the typical state in steppes looks like an amorphous system with branched tribal clusters. The exact boundaries of states and tribal lands within them were constantly changing. Moreover, many states may not have had a permanent capital or may have had one in nominal form. We can find significant cities in the steppe only where sheep herding is no longer economically viable. People in such a state literally represented the concept of people army. Almost every man and rarely woman was suitable for joining the army, since each of them had been on a horseback since the age of 4 or 5 and was proficient in the use of weapons. That factor is actually one of the secret ingredients of success of nomadic empires. Part 5. The importance of the concept. So once again, why this concept of the Great Steppe is so important? Why do we have to look closer to what at first seems like an empty-ish land? Well, understanding the concept of the Great Steppe is crucial for interpreting the broader patterns of Asian and Eurasian history. It moves beyond a purely geographical label and offers insights into a unique civilizational model shaped by mobility, ecology, and transregional exchange. While steppe societies spoke different languages and practiced diverse religions, their shared environmental and economic conditions forged common cultural and political traits. The Great Steppe was not only a land for a trade route, but also a route for ideas and meanings. It is truly a bridge between two big parts of the world, the bridge that is not empty. It always had people and cultures, the bridge that sometimes becomes crucial in history itself, like Mongol Empire, for example. It is not quite right to only see it as outskirts of civilizations, since it shaped both China and the whole West. It was the steppe that invented pants. It was the steppe that brought gunpowder to Europe, and it was the steppe that held the reins of military power across Eurasia for almost 2,000 years. Part 6. The concept today. Today, the Great Steppe concept is actively used in nation building of every country that was at least somehow connected to it. Of course, it is seen the most in countries like Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan, since they are the closest countries to the steppe traditions culture-wise. In those countries, concept is being studied, and it's crucial for understanding not only history but also modern politics and today's narratives. The Great Steppe formed the mentality of nations. Nations that even today are struggling with understanding of overloaded tax systems and trade tariffs. So finally, let us summarize what were discussed. What is the Great Steppe? The Great Steppe is a vast, interconnected belt of grasslands stretching from Eastern Europe to Manchuria, which served as a dynamic cultural, economic, and geopolitical zone for nomadic civilizations. It was not merely a geographic region, but a unified historical space where horse-based pastoralism, mobile statehood, and transcontinental exchange, for example the Silk Road, shaped Eurasian history. The importance of this concept is hidden, but in fact crucial for Eurasia continent, and its references are visible even today. The Great Steppe is a unique geography and its sacralization, signs of freedom, free trade, high adaptability, amorphous political structures that are usually tribal-based with no exact boundaries, and finally, it is still the biggest part of mentality of people in this region today. So what do you think about this concept? Do you see the connection between geography and culture that can be put in one specific concept? Or maybe it is also true for every other culture as well, and such big words are not needed? Before you answer, I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel, like and share this video. Thank you. Goodbye.